Thank you, Linda, and thanks for the kind words and introductions. And yes, I agreed to moderate, so we'll see how this goes, guys. Ray and Dan and I did a little bit of preparation ahead of time, and we thought we would hit 3 broad topics today, and I suspect those will take us lots of different directions. But when you think about creating a workplace to attract the best talent, as we were chatting in advance, we said, well, before you think about attracting the best talent, you got to be thinking about retaining the best talent. And so we wanted to start by taking a kind of a giant step backwards and talk about retention, because I think there was we'll each hit our own different takes on this for you, but the commonality, I think, among all of us was you can't think about attracting talent if you're not doing things to focus on your existing staff and retention. So we know that this is important for all of you. You want to hear about recruiting, you want to hear about hiring. We want to start with retention. And I'll share a few things just to get us started, and we're going to free flow this. Y'all jump in, interrupt. You two, not you all, not yet. And we'll see where this goes. So I wanted to share a few of the retention elements that we've employed at Kimley Horn and for many years, and as Peter pointed out, I think we have very much attempted to evolve those things. Whether we've done it well or not, I guess I'll find out from Peter later. But one of the things that we really focus on is employee development. And I think we see that very much with our younger staff. There's this insatiable quench for knowledge. You know, how can we learn more? I want to learn this new technology. And so we have, for as long as I can remember, my 21 years with the firm, we've always had very robust in-house training programs. And we've continued to expand those to include everything from technical skills to leadership coaching. Just this year, more than half of the firm has attended some form of in-house training. And so I've had the benefit of both being a participant and as an instructor. And so I can look back and say, geez, these skills that Kimley Horn has provided to me have been a foundation for my development within the firm. Early in my career as a project manager and someone who's very focused on the technical, and then emerging as a leader. And I think we're seeing that same thing with our younger staff. And all of our classes are effectively taught by in-house trainers, in-house facilitators, myself and other leaders in the firm, you really get to have that interaction with your staff. So beyond the mechanics of the training, there's also this element of relationship building with junior and senior staff. So I've got a couple other things that I will mention, but I'd like to get the dialogue flowing. So Ray, what would you add?
So at Burns & Mac, I was interested in listening to the introduction because I was thinking, you know, I wonder when we gave you the stats of how big we are. So in the last year, we've grown 1,000 people. 1,000 people from 5,800 to 6,800. And I agree completely. I think it starts with hiring the right people, right? You have to have, if you want to have and retain the talent, you got to start by hiring the right people. So we spend a lot of time in making sure that we find the right person that fits our culture of our company. And culture is the most overused word in history. So then we took what we defined as what we are, and we made what we call our MAC culture principles. And in those, it kind of memorialized what we are about. So we ask all our employee owners, does anything you're doing, is it in alignment with our MAC culture principles, and then ultimately our mission statement of making our clients successful, not being centric on ourselves, but being centric on our customers. So, you know, you think about a company like ours, it's pretty big, 6,800 people. It's a little tougher to get the one-on-one time with everybody in your company, and you know, millennials, young people, actually all people want that time with senior management. And so we do some things, training, obviously, do important projects. We share all information, good or bad, with our employee owners. We want them to be in the boat with us, with solving problems, running to the fires, not running away from the fires. But you know, the thing that I always get amazed at is people think that retention comes from having the best benefits. So our turnover runs, as a company, about 5%. That includes our retirees. If we take out our retirees, it runs sub 4%. for a company of 6,800 people. You ask, well, how do you get there? I'd say we're in the 50th to 60th percentile on our benefits. We don't have the best in any class in our benefits, but what we've said is that in our company, we got two hats, and we're going to talk about this later because we're employees and owners. So you're always discussing which hat you're trying to take care of. And as the employee hat, you want great benefits, but if you're owner hat, you want to take care of the shareholders. So we made a business decision that we're going to have reasonably good benefits, and then we're going to make your life easier at work. We're going to provide great training. We're going to provide you access to daycare. We have an on-site pharmacy. We have an on-site health clinic. We have a cafeteria. We have a nice gym. We have a trainer in the gym that can help you. And we're going to make your life while you're at work as easy as possible, and we're going to provide you great technology. We spend about $70 to $80 million a year on technology. So that's a lot of money. It's our number one overhead expense is, and you'd say not overhead because it's building your business, but our number one expense outside of paying ourselves and our labor. So if you're going to make your people really want to be productive, they got to have the best tools possible. You train them, and then we share all our information. And really everything else kind of takes care of itself if you do all those. Now, a lot of you aren't employee-owned firms, so it's a little tougher sell, but I think it still is the same issue, and that's communication on why decisions are made and why you're deciding in what regard what you're going to do if on behalf of your employees.
That's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I was curious how we provided our information to Linda, because we had the same issue. Of course, our scale is completely different, but we're much closer to 600 employees than 300. But at Garver, one of the things we think about when we talk about retaining good folks is just communication. You guys alluded to that through different aspects, whether it's training or something else. But we really prioritize our internal communication, at least as much as we do external communications. We have a communications team that says we never stop recruiting. So we're constantly interacting with our folks. We're very transparent about policy decisions and about our financial metrics and project metrics. We also utilize video significantly to inform our folks. And one of the things I think that's kind of fun is we don't take ourselves too seriously. A lot of our videos have humor, or at least they're intended to have humor. They don't always work. And in this past year, we're able to do this much easier than you guys are because we don't have as many places to go. But as a CEO and our COO, we actually went to each of our offices and had town hall meetings and just had interaction with our folks and to answer questions and to ask them what they thought about our culture and what we could do to improve.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned that, just the connectivity piece. I'll share another thing that we did that's worked well, and we've done this as long as I can remember. And and I started with the firm, we were 750 people, so not much larger than you are today. But when we start the beginning of the year, we kick off the year with what we call kickoff meetings, right? Aptly named. And we're organized by geography. We have 7 regions, and over a period of 3 weeks, we have everybody in the firm go to their regional kickoff. So now at north of 3,000 people, the first 3 weeks in January, there will be 7 different meetings. So Florida will have its own giant meeting. That's a region. California, Mountain, and so on and so forth. And that is in a room like this, with all that expense, we think culturally, right, for a variety of other reasons, that is absolutely critical to our success, the camaraderie. If you looked at it on paper, you just had a bunch of accountants look at it, they'd say, yeah, we need to get rid of this $1 million expense. This makes no sense, why are you doing this? Yet year after year after year, our people say it is one of my favorite things. You know, we're utilizing technology, people are working via Skype, they're sharing their screens, and they're meeting some of the people they've been working with across offices for the first time and saying, man, it is cool to finally meet you. I feel like we've known each other for so long because we've been working on this project all year, and now we actually get to be in the same room. So I think your point about connectivity, there's a lot that technology can do. We're doing some training in technology, but we're also realizing you can't replace face-to-face. There's nothing like it. To be able to shake someone's hand, to thank them in person, to rally around something together as a group, we continue to feel that that's very important, an important tool in retention.
And Steve, we do that on a different scale, obviously, but we call that really a culture of fellowship, is that we see benefit in getting our folks together. And if you expect this team to help this team, it just helps a whole lot if they actually know each other and they know their families. And so we have an annual meeting, similar to what you guys do. We're able to do it all in one place. And it is a huge investment, but we see it just as that, as an investment in our folks. The better they know each other, the better they work together.
Yeah, and I think, maybe you want to talk about, you've got a little bit different scenario, but the whole idea of your campus and some of the things that you're doing, where as we're very much distributed across the country, you have a lot of your staff in one location. You're able to do some things about connectivity on a campus that may be interesting for people to hear about.
So we have about half our employees in Kansas City, so it's about 3,300 people in Kansas City. We have 1 million square feet there, so it's a lot of office space. And I was just describing these guys, just kind of been added on over the years. It's a mile from one corner to the next corner if you walk indoors. But what it does allow us an opportunity is to share resources and people, and they do get chances to meet face to face. Many of our projects are billion-dollar projects, so they'll be coming and going experts on the job of 400, 500, 600 people working on a particular project as they do little pieces of it and expertise of it. So we try to also do a lot of fun things. So like when we won Fortune, I think that's also the key is you got to celebrate. You got to celebrate everything. Even if it's a small win, you celebrate. And actually the best time to celebrate is when things aren't going good, right? And so we celebrate everything. When we win Best Places to Work on Fortune, we brought a beer truck. I get out there and I honk the horn and we give a 6-pack of beer to every person in the company. And as one person emailed us and said, if it wasn't the best place to work before, it will be by 5 o'clock. Right? So we do give it to them not cold, so hopefully they don't drink at work. But we celebrate. We have a chili bowl every first day of the year. I shake every employee's hand as they come through our chili line in Kansas City to get their chili. It's our celebration of when we burned our mortgage after becoming an employee-owned firm. So we celebrate absolutely everything. And then we have an all hands-on meeting where we share all our financial. So we have it's getting a little tougher. You know, you got to run a convention hall now for 3,300 people, and then we simulcast it to every office at the same time. We announce our new stock price, which by the way, when the stock price is going up, is a lot more fun. So that's another way to create a culture of people staying is by having success. But we take it really, really serious. And I think I can't remember who said it, but when the people are very excited about where they work, or they're proud where they work, and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, that's when you know you got it. You've accomplished what you needed to accomplish. If there's something, if they can work towards an end goal and you help them with that end goal. So to Peter's point is, you know, I have mine, and I'm not going to share with them my visions for the future, and then, you know, then we try to get ownership and alignment, and we work towards those. And that's what gets people excited, is when they see where they think that the company can go. And that's what we really focus a lot on in our communication. And we're the same as you guys. We have an internal communication director that is, our staff there is as big as our external communications team, because I think it's equally important to have your people. And I always tell our people, you're the ones that are going to come up with the great ideas moving forward on technology and how to really develop what we have and make it even better and get more efficient and solve our customers' problems, because I'm not with them every day anymore. You are. So let me know what you want to do. And if you come up with a great idea, let's bring it up and let's see if it's a good idea and we can all get behind you. And so we actually have an internal competition on coming up with the next best idea or business line. We call it Ignite, and any person in the company can participate in it. It is hard to manage. I'll warn anybody that wants to do this, and it is a big distraction, but it creates a lot of people that are thinking about being more than what they are today. talking too long. Your turn.
Well, I'm just, it's interesting, sort of the commonalities. I'll kick it to you, but you're talking about Ignite. I may want to pick your brain afterwards. As we've initiated a growth strategy, one of the things that we have developed is a new ventures program. And so it is going to be open to all of our employees. There'll be an internal investment committee, and it is that same concept. It is about investing in our people. Anyone with a great idea can go through this process and bring it forward, and hopefully that may be that disruptive change that we're looking for, not waiting for to happen from the outside. So
The first one, by the way, came through in the finals was that we were going to get into blockchain bitcoins. I poo-pooed that one.
well, one day it would have been great.
Yeah.
The next day it may have been awful.
Yeah,
so
like
it just
three
depended on the
months
day,
ago is
right?
not the time to jump in.
Well, along those same lines, we don't have near as formal of a program, but we just call it corporate entrepreneurship. We think getting autonomy down to the local team leaders to figure out how they're going to build their teams, because it's different in every geography and every market. And so, we try to provide standard. We try to provide guidance about what that's going to look. It's got to fit in a framework, but as much autonomy as we can push down to those project managers to make decisions about how they're going to run their teams, we think we're better off.
Yeah, and I want to come back to this idea of entrepreneurship because I think it'll be a nice segue when we talk about ownership and culture. I do want to mention one more thing on retention because it was something that we observed in 2010, and it was a very real issue. And we realized that we were losing women at a faster rate than we were men. I mean, a measurable retention gap. And so we decided to do something about it. We realized it wasn't the outside. We the classic looked in the mirror, not out the window, and said we need to make some change. And so we established a program which is we refer to as LIFT, Lasting Impact for Tomorrow. And now we're, multiple years into it, we have seen the growth of our women in practice continually go up. The number of women at Kimley Horn has increased by 300%. The number of owners that are female at Kimley Horn has increased by 200%. So I think that's an example, and we probably all have them, and you have them out there. When you realize there is a problem, and it may not be widespread, it may not be across the whole firm. In our case, it was a population. And we looked at it and we said, this is not a do the right thing issue. This is a business issue. We have a retention gap, and we need to make the business case for investing in our female population. And it has been very successful. I think there will be times, and there probably are for all of us, when you see that, you have to pause the music and say, we've got to be willing to face it and make some change to deal with retention. Because how are we going to attract talent again if we can't?
So I'll ask each of you guys, which demographic do you guys see the biggest turnover? I know in our company, it's in the 0 to 2, 3 years, they don't leave, they love us. 7+ years, they don't leave, they love the company. It's in the 3 to 7 year window where we tend to have our biggest turnover. And I think part of it is natural because you're trying to figure out, number one, if that person's working out in the organization, and they're trying to figure out if they fit into the organization. So I think that's when that kind of works its way out. So we've started to tailor some policies and some programs to retain specifically in that window. And I don't know if you guys have seen similar things in your organizations.
Ours is it's a little different demographic. We had trouble keeping people in 0 to 3 years. And what we decided is that we weren't doing a good job of really explaining. We have a great culture, but it's also a high demand. And it's really by peers. And so we figured out we've got to do a better job of selecting those people that really fit in. Okay, kind of high touch, but also high demand. And so we've done a better job of explaining our values in the recruiting process to make sure people understand what they're signing up for.
Yeah, I think ours is more similar to yours at Burns and Mac. We went through that evolution, I think, a bit the way Garver may be, and have a level of rigor around our college recruiting program that has been very successful, where there's a mutual understanding of what you're getting into at Kimley Horn, and it is high speed, high touch, moving fast, and there's rewards associated with that. but it's, I mean, we've seen the same thing, that 3 to 7, and it tends to be, you have the intersection of all these things happening personally and professionally. People are, getting licensed, right? So they're sitting for the PE. There's life events, getting married. If you're female, and that was one of the things we realized, there's more life events. Because if you're getting married, you're probably the one planning the wedding. And after shortly after that, you may be starting a family. And you're starting to become a project manager now that you're licensed. So you've moved from the workplace, everything's being fed to me, to I'm in responsible charge. I've got to keep other people busy. I've got to worry about people at home. And that sort of universe of change can be very, very difficult. And so same thing, we're really working on programs for retention around that group. There's just a lot going on, and I think hopefully the audience is hearing that and recognizing that's a population that we need to be investing in. We all need to be investing in, because they're farther away, I think, from most of us in the room. But that's a time when people have a lot going on in their lives.
So I've just figured out which people to target in your organization. So thank you.
Ditto. Yeah, we'll just trade.
What's right?
And then if we could all avoid that kind of disruption, right? Because it's the grass is greener on the other side, right? Because you're so caught up in that universe of things.
I think you're also thinking about, can I do this for the next 30 years, right? And that's a tough thing sometimes. I guess we've all kind of went through that. I was in my 5-year window, and I was like, boy, this is a long time if I'm going to keep doing the same thing. Luckily, I wasn't doing the same thing, right? So you got to show opportunity, especially to that group, because they come in generally thinking they're going to be CEO in 2 or 3 years. So they've got to get a little dose of reality, and then they got to learn to work, and then you got to learn the progression of building life experiences that are going to make them really good leaders in your organization. So you got to help them, and so we've got a lot of programs for those that are showing a lot of talent in leadership, so that we can help develop them and keep them excited. We also have talk about, we call it our wall of shame. If we lose a star performer in your organization, which we quantify as a top 12% of our performers, we have something goes up in front of our officer meeting where those people's name stays up for a year, and why they left, and what we could have done to prevent that star from leaving the company. And we call it the wall of shame, because it's the wall of shame. You don't want your name on that list. And so, but it's a good motivator, and we're down. So you think about our stars, we have, would be about 700, 800. It's usually about 3 or 4 a year is what we lose. So we make it very important that the top leadership knows they have a path, right? So they have a path to something that they want to do in their careers, not necessarily what we think they should do in their careers. And that is a very powerful tool for our management or senior leaders to understand that's important to our organization.
Well, let me go ahead and shift gears if I can. Do you have sound? Okay. One of the things that we talked about, we thought might be interesting for the audience, is just the whole notion of ownership, right? Each of our organizations are employee-owned firms, structured differently, but I think we felt there's a commonality between us that's worth exploring. And it's something that I think each of us are very proud of. So I'm interested, and so the question, if you will, is, are there aspects of your culture that have been affected by private ownership? And if so, how? And so, Dan, would you mind starting us?
Yeah, well, I think the answer to that is absolutely. I think, and can we go ahead and talk about a little bit what our ownership structure is and how they might be a little bit different? We have about 10 to 12% of our employees are also owners, and you have to be an employee to be an owner at Garver. But I think the end result of the hard work that our folks do, they see it not only as a benefit to the company as a whole, but to their bottom line. It makes a difference in their paycheck at the end of the year if the company's doing well. So I think it absolutely motivates them not only to do well in their own business, but again, to kind of reach out to other parts of the company and to support them. Even if they don't see an immediate payback or immediate return on that effort, it makes sense for them to help others in the company to do well, because it's going to benefit them at the end of the year.
Yeah, so our structure is a little different. We're an ESOP S Corp, And so 100% of our employees are owners. So when you finish your first year, you get a contribution by the company, and it's turned into stock in the company. So you build up over time. It's not, the wealth isn't concentrated. It kind of comes through time, which also becomes a really good sustainable ownership transition structure, because you never have a large concentration at any given time leaving. About the most concentration we've ever had is maybe about 7 or so percent, 8% of the company leaving at any given time in a given year. So it's a very sustainable structure, but it becomes the building block that all decisions can be built around. Because if you have a structure where you're always talking about yourself as an owner or as an employee, which I mentioned earlier, you're always talking about the same person. It's just really which pocket you're talking about taking care of. You're taking care of the employee's pocket, or you're taking care of the owner's pocket. Now, there's a lot of employee-owned firms that aren't necessarily the best places to work, because you've got to then use that as your launching platform for decision-making and communication. You just can't assume that the business model on its own is going to take care of all of the issues in your company, because there's so many other things, especially when the ownership takes so long. In your organizations, it takes time until you get asked to be a part of. In ours, it takes a long time until you build enough equity that it actually means something to somebody. So you've got to still do all those things that are going to get people to understand. So we communicate, a lot about what your account might be worth if the company continues to do as well as it has, opportunities for growth, opportunities for leadership in the company, and all the things and different paths that all the different people that are in our leadership positions took to get where they're at. So people understand there's not one route to getting to where they want to be in their careers. And so that building block becomes the platform that you can build upon to be a great place to work.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, there's things that are similar, yet differences. So at Kimley Horn, we are employee-owned, 100% employee-owned. We are not an ESOP. We're a C Corp. We've always been that way. We have no expectation that all our employees will be owners. In fact, that is not what we want at all. It is by invitation. It is by promotion, a very clear path to ownership that anyone inside Kimley Horn can get on KHA.net, which is our internal site, and look at the path to ownership. There are no secrets. There are no questions. How do I get this? I heard at my other firm people could become owners and someone would knock on your door and it would happen. Not at Kimley Horn. It's crystal clear. But it's not for everybody. It's performance-based. And so I think that's where you see a little bit of difference in our firms. For example, a difference between us and Burns & Mac. We will tout that we have top-tier benefits. Well, why do we have top-tier benefits? Because we need to make sure that for many of those employees, in fact, 1 in 7 of our employees are owners, so those other 6 out of 7, what's in it for them? It's those top-tier benefits, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in our next topic. So our approach to ownership and to having a great place to work is really a very well thought out blend of all of these things. So we can't solve all of those issues with ownership for everyone. So we look at all the different tools that we have for retention and creating a great place to work, and that's been successful for us.
Steve, I think there's one other thing to talk about employee ownership. I think it has a positive impact on risk management, because our folks understand, and it seems very appropriate in Vegas, that you're not playing with house money. The decisions you make have an impact, not just on the company again, but on you.
Yeah, and one of the things we were talking about, I'd be interested to hear from either one of you about just the notion of culture and what it does for culture. Different structures in each of our firms, yet that common thread that weaves them together is we're not publicly traded, and I don't think we have any interest, aspiration, in fact, aversion to that for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is culture. So I'd be interested to hear what kind of conversations happen inside the walls of your firm about that.
We have a motto that we're an employee-owned firm to death. So just to make it crystal clear to anybody that's out there that's interested in us, or to our employee owners, that we are not changing our business model for anybody. Now, that being said, we work really hard to keep the laws in place and the policies in place that allow employee ownership to actually work, because it's a really important thing that was started in specifically on ESOPs in 1973-ish, I think it was, that allows the structure to be in place. But it creates that environment of, you talk about it, ownership, that people make better risk decisions, but I also think they work harder, and we just use the term that everybody cares more. They care about each other, and they care about the customer, they care about the suppliers and vendors, they care about, the person walking in through the hall. Now, I've told this story many times of what employee ownership means, and it's an anecdotal story that tells you what it could be, and the good or maybe even the bad with it. But so I'm in my new job as the head of energy group, and it's about 2004. I'm there about 7 a.m. I'm working, and a secretary walks into my office and goes, I got a real big problem. I need somebody to talk to, and there's nobody here yet. It's 7 in the morning. And I said, okay, what is it? And she comes in, she closes the door, and she goes, you know how we have customers that come in the morning, we set up breakfast for them outside the conference room? I go, yeah. I saw one of our employees take a donut off the tray. So I'm still waiting for why she's upset. And I go, oh, okay, yeah, people shouldn't do that, right? And here's her thought process, though. She goes, I don't want to rat out my fellow employee owner. I just want you to put something in one of your newsletters to not do that. And I go, well, I'm not doing that, right? That's not what my newsletter that I send out at Friday News is going to do. So finally, I got her I go, I just need to talk to the person, right? So they understand that's not what our culture is, and I don't want them in trouble and everything. And I go, don't worry, they're not going to get in trouble or fired for taking a donut. So it's about 2 weeks later. It was actually one of our top performing individuals in our organization. He's in our leadership group, one down from an officer. So I see him in the hall about a week later, and I go, hey, let's see, let's make up a name. Stuart. Hey, Stuart, you just need to know, the other day you took a donut off the tray and one of the assistants saw, and, I understand you might have been hungry. Or, he goes, no, I was my meeting. My customers were coming. I was just having a donut because I didn't want to eat while they were here so I could talk to them. And I go, well, she doesn't know that, right? So that assistant didn't know that. So you need to be careful, when you do things like that they understand you're there. But the power that somebody is worried about stealing a donut from a customer is a very powerful tool to having good customer service.
It's what matters in culture, right? I mean, it's funny. I'm listening to this. I'm like, this is the same at Kimley Horn, the protection over the bottled water, which is for clients. You need water, go in the kitchen and get it out of the tap or get it out of our water cooler. That's for clients. And it's not about the money. It's about the mindset that there isn't someone else that pays for that. Where does it come from? It comes from our retirement. It comes from our bonus pool. Period. So you can have a whole bunch of bottled water, or you can have bigger retirement. Because if everyone takes that attitude, there is no invisible third party. We always talk about it as there's two constituencies. There's our clients and there's our employees. And yes, there's a subset of our employees that are owners. But if you just think of it that way, it's real simple. So we do what's right for our clients, and we do what's right for our employees.
Your turn to add. What do the people steal at your office?
Well, just like you, Ray, we've made a commitment to our folks that we're going to stay an employee-owned company. One of the things that we do tell new owners, though, is we're willing to do that as long as you're willing to step up and become part of the ownership path. And that's a requirement. Now, we've got to make it attractive. We've got to make it where they can do that. But it's kind of a two-way street. We're not going to sell out as long as we've got people that are stepping up into this path.
Yeah, I think y'all will agree, but stop me if you don't. One of the things that is critical in private ownership is making money. You need to be making money, and the more of it you can make, the better, so it is attractive for your employees to be owners. Can't lose sight of that.
Absolutely.
You have to run it as a business. You have a much smaller market. It's an internal market. If that market's not interested, doesn't see it as a good investment, you're in trouble. So that's one of our sort of fundamental tenets is sustained profitability. We're not shy about it. We're in business to be in business. We're in business to have a return for our employees and owners.
So both for you guys, do you have, is it optional to buy in or is it mandatory to buy in?
It's optional, it's by invitation for us.
So for us, it is by invitation, but once you are an owner in what we call the buy phase, it's not optional. We would expect, and we do expect our owners to continue to buy over the course of their career.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have a complex program that creates funding for ownership transition. So like yours, very smooth ownership transition. No one owns more than 4%. Very small transition in any 1 year. So
We're engineers, it has to be complex.
absolutely. Sometimes more so than I think we need to make it, but nonetheless, that has been that notion of ownership transition and having stability in a private ownership model, I think we agree is pretty important. Okay, so last topic, and we've touched on this a little bit. It's one of my favorites. It's the issue of benefits. So you look outside of our industry, and we see companies offering all these different perks: free snacks, bring your pet to work day, sleep pods. You guys have sleep pods? We'll find out about that. You know, indoor scooters. I mean, these all sound fun and exciting. But is that really what our employees want? Is that really what's going to help plan for a secure future? Is that going to be the thing that helps them prepare for health emergencies? Is that going to help them plan for their secure retirement? So let me go back to you, Ray. You started a little bit talking about your approach to benefits. Maybe you can expand on that, not just sort of the overall, but how are you dealing with this issue of, I'll call it the new shiny object, right? The Silicon Valley effect, whatever you want. It's catching everyone's eye, but is it really a benefit in the end? More committed to a comprehensive, what I'll call old school package, or some of those new shiny objects?
Yeah, I think we do a little bit of both, and it's actually some of the biggest struggle I have as leading Burns & Mac is that when people come to see me, they all come with the perspective that we should be the best at anything we provide, the best health care, the best maternity policy, the best whatever. And I have to always explain to them that's not in the best interest of Burns & Mac. Because the best interest of Burns & Mac is having a sustainable company, that we have very good benefits, but that we sustain the ownership part and that retirement part of your organization. So we really I focus specifically on providing benefits that are available to as many people that could possibly use them. And that's one of the problems I see with a lot of very specific benefits, like bring your pet to work, then I would think everybody that wasn't a pet owner is like, why am I paying for that? So let's make something that's available generally to all. So it's stuff like, I mentioned this, a fitness center, a cafe, and I've been just absolutely shocked. And if anybody wants to control your healthcare costs, adding an on-site pharmacy, if you have enough scale, is an extremely good way to control your prescription drug costs. It's an incredible amount of savings. So we, on average, save $12 a prescription by selling at cost as a direct supplier of a pharmacy. Now, that's not an employee. We obviously outsource that. We pay the pharmacist, and we pay for the space, but even with that, with all of the drugs that go through, and then we have all the over-the-counter stuff, which is incredible markup. And I don't actually talk about this much because it's only available in Kansas City, but like Band-Aids, we sell for like 38 cents, a box of Band-Aids, and the employee owners get that benefit. The other really cool thing about the pharmacy is that it's right next to our daycare center. So we have 144 kids in the daycare center, and when one of them's teething, you can go over to the mom can come over, go to the pharmacy, get whatever medication, because the daycare can't actually administer any medicines, and they can go over there, they can comfort their child, they can put whatever on their teeth. I think it's called Ampicil or something like that. I don't know, it's been a while. My daughter's 24. Yeah, I'm past that stage. So, and this lady sent me a note said I was only away from my desk for 15 minutes. And if that was my child was in that other daycare, I would have had to take a day off of work. And so I really tried, and I know that's a specific subset of our people, but it's also a specific subset that we lose the most in. And women, I actually had a pretty good debate with our chief administrative officer, a female, that says, I go, are you going to give some preferential treatment to female employees over male employees? And she thought long and hard and said sheepishly, yes. And I said, that's fine, as long as you allow me to put more bathrooms in for men than women, since we're 75% men. And so she made that compromise to me. So that's the point, right? You got to do stuff that, the cafe, the healthcare, so we have nurse practitioners there, that when you got your everyday things, you don't have to take a day off to work to go take care of it, and we're just going to make our life as easy as we possibly can for these people that we put a lot of demands on. In our business, and I'm sure all your businesses, they're not only working hard, they're generally traveling a fair amount, and that stress in the home life, we're actually looking at an option for takeout dinners now, so that we can sell dinners to people that want to take them home, and especially working parents. I actually talked to Peter's point, I actually have employees now that said they have not been to a grocery store in 2 years. They have 100% of their food delivered to their homes. And you talk about disruptive, I was like, it just amazes me. I go, how do you pick out your produce, right? I mean, this is the engineer in me, how do you pick out your produce? And he goes, if I don't like it, I tell them it's no good and I don't pay for it. So they are very accommodating. And we're looking at, we're working with some of the big grocery chains that they're now building distribution centers as opposed to building bricks and mortar grocery stores. We're in that business. So they're going to make all their sandwiches in one place. They're going to have all their food delivery start from one place. And that's just a disruptor in the model that you're not going to spend an hour in the grocery store anymore. So I'm sorry, I've kind of gone off cue here. But we're trying to make our employees' lives as easy as possible with our benefits.
What are you doing?
Well, I thought our benefits were really good, but we don't have an on-site pharmacy and we don't have a daycare. But I think, the whole world of benefits is a balance that you talk, because you have to be competitive. You can't, when you're recruiting, you can't have somebody down the street offering way better benefits. But I would call our benefits package more old school, kind of traditional things. The one thing that we do that we're really proud of is that we, even a firm our size, we have a very robust wellness program. And we do that all in-house. We have 2 wellness coordinators that work for us full-time. And I think the thing that does is, one, is we're self-insured on our medical plan, so it actually helps us, as we see that as an investment. But it also is a great avenue just to indicate to our folks that we care about them. We care about their physical well-being.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I mean, hearing the contrast between your 2 firms, and I'll add one thing, I hope will be helpful for you all to think about, regardless of the scale of your firm, there are things that you can do. So you've got wellness coordinators. The campus model provides a lot of different options for you. One of the things that we've been doing is we've developed a relationship with Bright Horizons nationally, because we're distributed across the country. So our employees have access to preferred rates with Bright Horizons. We also provide a benefit that's called backup child care. So you've got something, and at the last minute your nanny is sick, or your primary child care provider can't be there, but you've got a big presentation. We have employees have a certain number of days that we pay for of backup child care to deal with those emergencies, so you can continue to serve the clients in the way that you want to. And so that's been an effective tool for us. But where we've...
I'm writing one down. That's a good one.
Yeah. So Bright Horizons, if you're listening, and Ray calls you, I expect a further discount. Where we have really focused our benefits, and the real robust side of Kimley Horn's benefits has been on the retirement side. It's universal, right? Even if the millennials don't think they're going to retire, at some point they're going to need to retire. Our retirement program is first 4%, we match 8%, discretionary profit sharing on top of that, 10%. So 18%. And that is just shattering, I think, all sorts of paradigms, not just in our industry, but nationally. And that, for us, we put that first. We fund that. In fact, we approved that in our most recent board meeting. We fund that discretionary piece each year before we establish our bonus pool. That's what level of priority we put on it, because that's for all of our employees. Okay, so we do that. The other thing that we do that cuts across all of our employees, and I would categorize these both in the form of old school, right, is bonus programs. Every single employee, if you're employed at the end of the year, is eligible for a bonus. Everyone gets paid a bonus. Recession, yes, they were lower. We pay bonuses to everybody throughout the recession. So there's lots of other things that we do. We get a bit more creative because we don't have the campus model, but I think it's interesting, and hopefully it has been for you all to hear the different ways each one of us at different size firms are able to address the needs of our employees and really have great places to work, really at any scale. And so if you're out there saying, well, we're too big or we're too small, we can't do that, I'd encourage you to look in the mirror and get creative and say there are things that you can do at any scale firm. Helps to be private. Start there, right? Do we agree? Yes. Stay fiercely private, and then look at the ways that you can focus on your employees, and you can be successful at that. I think we're going.
Yep.
I'm sensing you there.
Yeah, I know.
It looks like we're right on time.
It's kind of a weird dynamic that I'm behind you. It's like, you feel the guy with the hood coming up behind you. I apologize for that. I have one takeaway from this session, and I want to just say, we talked a little bit before about intentions and whether or not we're making our intentions clear. And I think you said that your intentions were not to provide the best benefits. You wanted to provide medium-level benefits. I think you're like the Amazon disruptor of employee benefits. I mean, those are, I'll come to work for you. My contract is 3 years, and at the end of that period, Manish, I'm announcing that I'm moving to Kansas. I'll start having children again so I can take advantage of the child care. But, all three of these companies are doing amazing, amazing things. And I think it's very timely. I think it's absolutely critical that we do this because it is one of the most competitive job markets that we've ever faced. So the time is now. Yeah.
So what we say we do is very good benefits, maybe 60 to 70 percentile. But what we do say is we want to pay top tier in the entire industry so that money's in your pocket to make those decisions on what you think is important for you to spend your money on.
Yeah, and our approach is similar, total comp, right? We get there different ways. We say our total compensation package, we want it to be top tier.
Right.
Now, the way ours adds up, and I suspect the way yours adds up, are different. And I think that's part of the point.
Yeah. Fascinating discussion. I did also want to point of clarification. What we are reporting out in terms of the number of employees that each one of your firms have is what we get from our membership department. So I'm not we will check. I will go back and check. But, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on this very critical issue.
Ours was outdated by this morning, so
okay.
I'm not too worried about it.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. So thank you. We have a few minutes for questions. So I would ask that you please raise your hand, and one of our team members is going to come around. I see one in the back, in the middle. I see another one over here on the right. So let's go in the back first, and then we'll go to the right. So we have two lined up.
Right here. Very quick talk. And one question that was brought up, the retaining the 3 to 7 year employee and how you tackle that. Is there any specific things that you look to do?
That was the 3 to 7 year period.
Two of us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we'll refer to that group as the mid-levels. We're doing a lot of training. We're doing supervisor training. We are, this year as part of our business plan, consciously investing in that population. So we've said, hey, one senior person can really effectively focus on no more than 3. So we're making some allocations and readjusting billability rates to truly invest. When I say invest, not just lip service, shifting some of both that mid-level professional's time away from direct client service so they can be focusing on how to be a project manager, how to be a leader, and then making sure that there's some time of those senior people that it's not an unfunded mandate for them to spend time with them. So we're actually building that cost into our business plan to make the connections. Now, you have to take action, right, is what we heard, but that's the framework that we're working on right now.
We're doing similar things. We've also started what we call an emerging leaders program. So people in the 5 to 8 year window, we get groups of about 40 that we expose to senior leadership in the company and what their paths might be. And the other thing we've done, and I think there's hopefully no 3 to 7 year Burns and Macker in this room, because we've also analyzed our pay structure, and we had a phenomenon where our company's profitability went like this for a lot of years, and now we've plateaued. It's still doing very nicely. But what we noticed is that we were taking 3 and 7 year people that are in that range now and comparing to those people that were there 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when our company was on a steady climb and we were having a lot of money to spend on bonuses, and we noticed that that group is not as well, even though our company's still at the same level, they're not getting as much compensation as those groups did 7 or 8 years ago. So we've, this year, are changing our compensation model for that group and allowing a little more differentiation so that your top performers in that 3 to 7 year window are going to see their pay go up quite a bit faster than they have been for the last few years. So we actually do a lot of data analysis. And, you know, it always comes down to opportunity and pay are the 2 big things that are driving, especially in that window of people. So we're showing them the path to opportunity, and we're looking at their compensation both.
So that's not an issue for us right now, but I now have a burning aspiration to make sure that's not a problem in the future.
Stay ahead.
Thank you.
Stay ahead.
All right, we have one more question on the right, I know, and then a final one in the back.
Okay, just real quick, I wanted to talk to Ray at Burns and McDonnell. Several years ago, we had an outstanding female engineer in New Mexico who was not being treated well by her company. So she put out 7 resumes to 7 companies. All 7 companies offered her a job, but she chose your company. So she uprooted from New Mexico, moved her family there. Within a month, they had asked her to apply for a department manager position, which she did and which she got. Well, all these young engineers, particularly women in New Mexico, were watching her. They all uprooted also, moved to Kansas, now work for your company. It's actually still happening. She's been gone several years, and they're actually still leaving and going to your company. So I just wanted to tell you what a testament it was, because this is an outstanding engineer, an outstanding individual, and the people you got from her leaving, and then just kind of a warning to companies, you know, to treat your employees well, because everybody's doing what they're doing, and we've lost numerous in our state.
They have
I
legs
didn't
to
know where you were
walk.
going. I'm glad it ended well. By the way, I would love to learn who that is, because I'd love to know that.
That's great. And the wall of shame was something that I noted as well. That really is that's extreme in a good way. Okay, so the one last question right in the back here.
Okay, so thank you for your insights. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the employer-employee relationship in many ways parallels the firm-client relationship. You got to build trust, and then you got to build commitment for the journey.
Yeah.
And you shared some great strategies in terms of retaining staff. Can you talk to us about the setting up the foundation of the relationship between employer and employee at the hiring stage, and what are some of the discussions you have at the early stage as far as the journey and the milestones that you have along the way, say the first 100 days, to make sure that the start of that journey is on a solid foundation?
I know I got hired 32 years ago. I'm not sure what we do now. The new employee, to tell you the truth. But I'll start by our HR group does a really spectacular job of assimilating. I don't know how many of you guys use internship programs, but we probably have our new college grads, probably a good 40–50% of them come from our intern program, so that we can kind of see them, teach them, and assimilate them, and give a lot of affinity groups they can hang out with. You know, if you're a structural engineer, you love softball, you love, happy hour group. So we make sure they get a lot of interaction and build relationships early in their careers. And so that, we're hiring a lot of people, 1,000 people a year. You've got to make sure that you don't lose them. And as the bigger the company gets, it's easier to lose people. So we just make sure that there's a lot of structure and opportunity for people to meet and collaborate in similar people and interests.
Some ways similar, although I continue to be very involved with a lot of our new hires, maybe more on the senior side. And while HR for us is important, we found that cultural integration, that assimilation, really comes from the peers. So we put together teams for our senior folks. Someone will have what they call a success and integration plan, and the HR leader is really leading that, maybe the orchestra leader, if you will. But there are several people that are their partners, people on their team that they work with every day, touching base every couple months, see how things are going, to really work on that integration. And so that's been very successful on the college side. Very similar. We look at internships as a 3-month interview, and so we have a very robust internship program to align with our college hiring program, which is going to eclipse 500 college hires this next year. So really focused on getting people in early in their career and starting that cultural assimilation as they're just coming out of school into the program.
We do similar to what, again, not quite to the same level, but we assign peers and give them certain tasks to do, to interact with those folks and make sure that their needs are being met, their interests are being met, and they learn really what our culture is.
Yeah, high touch. I mean, I think you just got to remember that. Whoever it's from, it's got to be high touch.
Yeah.
And we have a mentorship program. My wife always accused me of being the person's tormentor, but I did the best I could.
I think there's a common theme, and it's all about that connectivity. We talked about this, culture of fellowship, and this is something that I actually spoke to some of the women in an emerging kind of discussion that we're having about women in engineering, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and it's about having a place, having a place where you feel connected and making sure that you fit into that space well, regardless of, whether you're a next generation leader, you're a woman, you're somebody from a, diverse ethnic background. You want to know that you belong, and we can proactively find a way to help connect you right at the start so that we don't lose you because you feel like it's not your place. We spend probably 80% of our working hours, of our waking hours at work. And if that's not a good place to be, then people are not going to stay with you, and probably more so than ever in our past. So 3 tremendous models of how to do it. Thank you. Each of our panelists, I think, did a fabulous job. It was a great discussion.